Come one, come all, swashbucklers. Be you a brave Zorro, a noble musketeer, or a mysterious man in black. Today at Practical Pathfinder, let's build a swashbuckler that has amazing team-wide support and frontline bulk to have your party saying,
All for one, one for all!
We're building a Wit-style swashbuckler who's using the incredible all-for-one feat and ability to debuff your enemy while buffing your team at anything they do, be it skill checks, recall knowledge, or even basic attack rolls and spell attack rolls. You can do it all, and you know what? Your damage isn't too shabby. As a Wit Swashbuckler, you excel at two things. One, using the Bon Ma ability to reduce your enemy's will saves and perception checks, so your casters will love you. And using the One for All ability, which comes from your first level feat, to aid any check. That's right, any check can be aided with the diplomacy skill within 30 feet of you. This is so vital. You're good at anything, you're good at everything. Your friends climbing a wall? Aid. Your friends remembering something? Aid. Cooking dinner? Aid. Attacking enemy? Tripping an enemy? Grappling an enemy? Aid. No matter what it is, you're here to help out your team, and they'll appreciate you so hard. But it's not perfect. While this build takes off past level 10 and level 8, it's a little weaker on the low level side. It's lacking area of effect damage, it's fairly action hungry to protect itself below level 10, and until you hit level 8, its damage is kinda mediocre. Unfortunately, getting enough stats to pump your strength is going to be hard in this kind of swashbuckler build, so you're really reliant on your spiky precision damage from finisher attacks. Good news is, you can get that every round consistently. Bad news is, there are the rare enemy that are immune to precision damage, such as oozes and ghosts. If you run into those, you might need to help your team instead of doing the damage yourself. Good thing you're a master of aid and master of helping the team. Now, while this build offers excellent bulk and a high armor class for a frontliner, it also gives you an open hand. This is remarkably good. You'll be a perfect teammate for opening doors, pulling levers, grabbing maidens in distress out of dangerous situations like a good swashbuckler should. And your alchemist friends will love you because you can drink down buff potions, you can hold items to use before combat. The open hand, really good. Also, battle medicine, love to see it. Downside is, you are rocking lower damage finesse weapons. The best weapon you can grab is probably a rapier, realistically. And you're not going to find anything that does more than a d6 of damage most of the time. Fortunately, your bleeding finisher at level 8 is going to bring massive damage over time that'll really scale you back up to feeling like a different kind of martial would. Downside is, there are undead which are immune to bleed. It's not great, but hey, you can't win them all. Now, as an aid-focused class, as a support frontliner, Swashbuckler wants certain party members more than others. Aid from All for One naturally benefits a single skill or a single attack, not more than one. So, your best party members are characters who have a single big hit that they do on their turn. With this in mind, I would recommend Magus above all else. You are the best pairing in the game. You will love each other. They throw a huge spell strike. You aid the spell strike. That's a +2. At higher levels, a +3, even a +4 to hit. That's a lot of crits, that's a lot of hits, and that's a lot of damage. Now, you don't only need Magus though. Psychics and any caster with a lot of attack rolls, though Psychic is the best one for it in my opinion, is another huge pick. They can use Amped Ignition as an oscillating wave psychic. You buff up that to hit rate and they will light dudes up fast. In terms of other martials, there's plenty of picks too. Barbarian, particularly any swipe barbarian who cleaves through multiple targets, will love you. An Inventor can use the Megaton Strike skill for a 2-action giant hit that, again, you make that accurate. Outside of fancy 2-action attacks, Gunslinger and Fighter also love you just as much, because Gunslinger relies on critical hits, so if you allow their firearms to trigger that fatal trait from crits, oh yeah, that's good stuff. And Fighter has strong 2-action moves, or press actions that benefit a lot from getting those bonuses to hit. Slam Down and Combat Grab are some early available ones that you really want to boost up. Not all teammates are necessarily good for this build though. Some teammates I wouldn't recommend, once you don't throw attack rolls or throw too many, aren't as helpful. So Flurry Ranger and Monk's Flurry of Blows don't really benefit that much from being aided on a single attack. They prefer getting buffs to every attack. And while I love Rogue, and Investigator's okay, a little bit of bias, not gonna lie, but precision damage teammates, I would be careful of putting too many on one party. Some enemies are immune to precision damage, and if your party is a rogue, a swashbuckler, and a precision ranger, you're gonna have a very bad time when that ghost or ooze shows up and all of you can't do effective damage. There's many ancestry choices you can pick for a swashbuckler, but of them, I recommend Halfling most of all. It has naturally high dex and wisdom stats, both of which you love, and the intuitive cooperation feat, which does a great job of boosting your aid checks. This build is going to be aiding every round when possible. So a +2 to aid, no ability to crit fail. You'll love to see it, you'll love to see it. Outside of that, Human and Elf are both solid picks. Human has both Natural Ambition for a level 1 class feat, which you really kind of want. This is a very feat-hungry build at low levels. Natural Ambition gives you a lot of room, but also Cooperative Nature feat, which is really nice at boosting your aid checks once again. If neither of those is what you want, you can always pick Elf. Elves are solid, they have high dex, high move speed, though their low HP and low constitution makes being a dedicated frontliner a little risky. In terms of stats for your cunning and suave swashbuckler, you're going to want a maxed out dex. Try and go for a +4 dex at all costs. +3 if you absolutely have to, but I don't recommend it. Beyond that, you're going to want a high charisma, followed by con and wisdom. So try to go for +3 charisma and then increase your constitution and wisdom as much as possible, just to stay alive in fights. Now when it comes to your swashbuckler's equipment, this is kind of an interesting one. It will change as you level. Now you'll always want leather armor and probably a rapier in your main hand, though a short sword or dog slicer is a valid option if you'd prefer. On your other hand, you want it to be open below level 10. You want nothing in your other hand for better defense. Once you hit level 10, however, you're going to want a buckler with a reinforcing rune on it. Absolutely. So, again, you're better off with no buckler from levels 1 through 9, and then at level 10, you retrain a feat and take a buckler for the better defense. Outside of that, for magic items, you're free to take whatever sounds good, but you'll want a diplomat's badge to up your diplomacy, and an arboreal boots, also known as boots of elvenkind, to increase your acrobatics. These are the key skills for any swashbuckler. Now, as a swashbuckler, skills are your lifeblood. Particularly in the wit style, you're going to max out diplomacy no matter what. You need this. It's what you use for bon mot. It's what you use for all for one for buffing and debuffing. And it's great to have for social reasons when role-playing. Outside of that, you're going to want acrobatics to be your second best skill, because that's also vital for a swashbuckler. Tumble Through will give you Panache for finisher strikes if you have no other option. Useful for mindless enemies, or if somehow you end up with no allies to aid with all for one. Last, for your extra skills, you have quite a few options based on your character specifically. You could go medicine and be a great medic for the team. You have an open hand in combat, so battle medicine's a natural synergy, and it's always nice to have something to do to help patch people up. Stealth and thievery are great picks in general. Particularly if you go halfling, I recommend stealth very, very highly for some of their ancestry feats at high levels. You have a high dex, so you're good at sneaking. But if you're not playing to sneak, intimidation is another natural synergy with your very high charisma. Having extra debuffs on hand for every enemy, why wouldn't you like that? It's just good. And high charisma, extra actions, it's pretty easy to use on a swashbuckler. Now when it comes to skill feats, the one that matters most you get automatically is being a Wit Swashbuckler, and that's Bon Ma. Bon Ma is a debuff for enemies' will saves and perception saves, so your casters will love you. It's an amazing synergy for any illusionist, any will save user, occult casters, some divine casters, and arcane casters are all going to be amazing synergies. Just be aware a primal caster like a druid doesn't have too much they can do to help out here. Outside of that, you're going to want the intimidation feats if you picked intimidation as a skill to increase, or the medicine feats if you decided to go for the medicine route. That's pretty self-explanatory. And no matter which one you pick, you're going to want Catfall and Kip Up from the acrobatics skill. Catfall will stop you from taking falling damage, always nice for fancy tricks, and Kip Up allows you to get up from prone as a free action without provoking attack of opportunity. Note, you can only do this on your turn, but it means you can fall prone and just get up for any reason as much as you want. That's really good. In terms of your general feats, it's a pretty standard frontliner loadout here. You need toughness when you can afford it because more HP is more good. And Fleet gives you more move speed, which always helps, though swashbucklers are naturally incredibly fast, so it's very easy to ignore this for something else. And most importantly though, shield block. This is a specific one. You're not going to be using a shield until level 10. So shield block does nothing from levels 1 through 9. But the moment you hit level 10 and you pick up a buckler with a reinforcing rune, shield block will give you a lot more durability in an emergency. So consider retraining your second general feat the moment you hit level 10 to swap it from fleet, or whatever you took, to shield block. Now for the real meat and potatoes of any good class build, the class feats. Oh yeah. At level 1, you're taking All for One. This is non-negotiable and is the foundational pillar of the swashbuckler build we're doing today. All for One allows you to aid any roll, skill checks, attack rolls, talking to friends, recall knowledge, anything with your diplomacy skill, and you gain Panache in combat. Oh, it's so good. Level 2, we're going to take Extravagant Parry. Now, Extravagant Parry allows you to effectively defend yourself for +2 AC as if you raised a shield. In theory, you could just use a shield if you really wanted, but Extravagant Parry will give you Panache if an enemy misses you, so another source of Panache is always nice. This is kind of a weird case because at level 10, you're going to retrain Extravagant Parry for Elegant Buckler. Elegant Buckler is strictly worse than Extravagant Parry levels 1 through 9 because it only gives Panache on a critical miss. But once you hit level 10 and get the top tier amazing feat Buckler Dance, which allows you to raise your buckler permanently as a stance, so you just get a permanent defense buff to your AC, then Elegant Buckler is better. So we're starting with Extravagant Parry at level 2 and retraining to Elegant Buckler at level 10. Beyond that, your level 4 and level 6 are fairly open. This is a great time to dip into an archetype if you so please. Level 4, otherwise, I'd try Swaggering Initiative. Going first is always nice, and if you go first, you get extra Panache that lets you dash in with high speed, finisher someone, and then either prep to aid, run back, or Elegant Parry in order to defend yourself. If you go first as Swashbuckler, there's a lot of good options, but it's not necessary. At level 6, I would normally recommend Reactive Strike for almost any martial, but for this build, Aid from All for One requires your reaction. And if you're aiding most of the time to boost your party and work together, you don't have the reactions to use Reactive Strike. So if you really need something, you don't want to do an archetype, go for Vexing Tumble. Vexing Tumble lets you reposition and maneuver without triggering reactions. It does give you Panache, which is fine, but the real value is being able to avoid enemy reactive strikes and retreat or advance as needed. Level 8 though, level 8 is the good stuff. This is Bleeding Finisher. You will go from feeling okay but a decent support to feeling like one of the strongest characters in the party. Easily. Bleeding Finisher causes you to deal additional damage over time, an additional persistent bleed damage on your finisher hit equal to your finisher damage, which at this point is 3d6. That's going to become 4d6 and then 5d6 later on. You slam into someone with Bleeding Finisher, and then next turn you just stab another target and another target. You let that dot damage tick. It will do so many numbers as time goes on. It is very, very good. And at level 10, this is honestly the point where your build has more or less finished, and you can do whatever you want after this. You're taking Buckler Dance. Buckler Dance is a stance that causes you to raise your shield, your buckler specifically, and you gain the +1 or +2 AC if you retrain to Elegant Buckler from your level 2 feat, which is what we're doing. A permanent +2 AC stance. So now your support character has great damage through Bleeding Finisher, amazing team support from All for One, and a very high armor class thanks to a permanently raised shield. You are a real pillar of the party. You're super tanky, you're durable, you're supportive, and you have solid damage. It's really good. Now, while levels 1 through 10 is us gaining most of our primary core functionalities, level 11 through 20 will see Swashbuckler get a lot of situational but very effective skills and feats. If you want to take archetypes at higher levels, you definitely have the room to do so. But otherwise, try considering Mobile Finisher at level 12. This lets you to stride and then land a finisher for one action. Sometimes you just need that extra action. You need to be able to stride and strike at the same time. This lets you do that. If you leveled your Intimidation, you went for an Intimidation secondary skill, consider Get Used to Disappointment.
I must get used to disappointment. Okay.
Get Used to Disappointment is so excellent because it lets you land extra intimidations. It's more action compression. Extra actions means extra value. Level 14, you want to land Perfect Finisher. Perfect Finisher is a very, very high damage finisher. It allows you to roll 2d20s and then take the better result. That's right, it's Sure Strike built into your class. This is really good because it gives you options. If you want to land a hit on an enemy early in a fight, hit them with Bleeding Finisher for that persistent damage. But if someone's low health or late into the battle, hit them with a Perfect Finisher. You have a much, much higher chance of landing a critical hit. Critical hit stuff. Finish them off. Heh, would you look at that? Level 16, we can pick up Deadly Grace. This will increase the damage of critical hits. It's best on weapons that already have a deadly die, though it's decent otherwise. If you're using a rapier, which frankly is probably the strongest swashbuckler weapon most of the time, Deadly Grace is insanely good. At level 18, there's nothing particularly vital for this build, so again, it could be a free slot. Otherwise, consider Parry and Riposte. Parry and Riposte allows you to make a reactive strike on an enemy anytime they miss you. Normally, Swashbuckler can only make a strike on a critical miss. This changes it to a normal miss. Quite nice. The reason I'm not hot on it is that it competes with your reaction. Again, as a one-for-all aid-focused build, your reaction is going to usually be spent aiding a friend. So, other reactions are hard to fit in sometimes. And last, at level 20, you have Illimitable Finisher. This is so funny. It's so good. Illimitable Finisher allows you, when you do a finisher, you do one finisher, and if you hit, you can then do a second finisher using any of your finishers that you've learned. So now you can walk up to an enemy and be like, oh, hey man, hey, perfect finisher into bleeding finisher as a single action. It's a level 20 feat. You probably won't see it for very long if you ever do, but oh boy, this doubles your damage output. Straight up. Now, Swashbuckler in real play, it will be a little tougher than, say, a fighter. You have a lot of options, and you need to pick which is the right one at the right time, because you only have 3 actions. But it's all about style, baby, so you'll enjoy it either way. With that said, I would recommend focusing your turns on getting in front of your party. You don't have to engage with the enemy. It's fine if they come to you, but you want to be taking those hits of your high HP and your high armor class thanks to either Extravagant Parry or Buckler Dance at higher levels. So get in front of your party to start round 1. Prep one action for all for one to aid a teammate, depending on what teammates you have. If you have a ranged attacker like Gunslinger or Psychic, aid them. If your Magus is going to move in for a spell strike, aid that. It depends on your team. Talk to your party and figure out who has the biggest hit for you to boost. And on your last action, if you can throw a finisher, awesome. If you don't, definitely Extravagant Parry or raise your Buckler Dance on round 1 and get that armor class up. If you're going to take hits, you best be ready for it. Later on as combat goes, land bleeding finishers on enemies that are high HP to give plenty of time for their health to tick down over the rounds, and at high levels land perfect finishers on low HP enemies in order to ensure you finish them off or to just land giant chunky hits. And there you have it. That's a powerful and practical swashbuckler build that helps your allies be effective while also putting out solid numbers and survivability yourself. Let me know your thoughts. If there's other classes you'd like to see, definitely let me know. I know it's been a little while since our last video. Sorry, got kind of busy, but we're back at Practical Pathfinder, and I'm ready to have some fun and effective builds for all of y'all. Thank you all for coming. Be sure and like and subscribe if you enjoyed it. You'll catch more builds, more spell guides, and even some DMing tricks and tips coming down the pipeline. I have been working on a few things, but, you know, I got to keep it secret till it's ready, right? As always, I'm Lord Generic, and this is Practical Pathfinder.